Right then. Good morning and welcome back to the Robin Redbreast. So far we've got the eye done, and then we've got the beak as well. So now we're going to have a look at some base layers for the redbreast part of it. This is what the bird's famous for. It's nice redbreast here. Um, at the moment, we've got, well, I've counted two so far in our garden, but they're both the opposite ends of the garden, so they've only actually met up a couple of times. So watching them fight is a little bit. Right then, so what we need to do is the colours for the breasts. I've got several in mind. I might not use them all, but I should get some of them out so that we can see. Let's have a look. What's the two colours there? We've got ochre, brown ochre, no, brown ochre. So for have a look. So I've got here, I've got the brown ochre 10% in the luminance range, which is what I'm going to use for a base layer. It's a nice light layer, and I can see a couple of spots of that in the breast. We also have a brown ochre 50% as well, so I should be putting a bit of that on. So they'll be the base layers basically, mainly, and then we're going to go on to the sort of the breast itself. And I've got quite a few colours here. I've got the yellow ochre. We've got here, these are polychromos. We've got the yellow ochre. Because there are a few sort of yellowy orangey spots. We've got the Indian red, which we use for the deeper shadows. Then we've got the brown ochre in the polychromos. We've got scarlet red, and we've got the light, I think it's the light cadmium red. Yeah, the light cadmium red, and we've got terracotta in the polychromos range. So we may use all of them, but we may just use a few. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'm actually going to use the luminance, and I'm going to, before I do that, I'm going to get my blue tack, make sure it's nice and clean, stretch it about a bit, and then I'm just going to lightly tap out some of the pencil marks because we don't want it too dark. Okay, I want to leave some of these directional lines in so we can see what direction we're going in. Okay, but it's the outer lines mainly. And then it's going to come down there. It comes down there and comes back up there and then across there. So that's so let's just lighten these up a little bit here because we don't need them that dark. Because I say the graphite can sometimes it can interfere with the colour, especially when using bright colours, but it can also interfere with, it's showing through the paint, the picture, the finished piece. Okay, then, so I'm going to take we'll start with the brown ochre luminance 10%. So I'm going to start and I'm just going to go. So even though it's the beginning of let me just rub this outline out a bit more. It's a little bit too, I don't like the actual outer outline, I don't like to see at all. So make that sure that's almost invisible. There we go. So I'm going in the actual direction of the feathers as well. But light, if you look, I'm holding the pencil quite far back, like that. So you can see it is quite far back, so I can't put a lot of pressure on it anyway. But constantly looking. Now, because this is a base layer, you can do it as a shading motion. So that's just backwards and forwards, but very light touch. Okay. And then make sure you are following the direction of the feather. So keep looking back constantly at your reference photo, just so that you can see which directions the feathers go in. And also There we go. As I say, very light touch. Don't put too much pressure on. This is just the base layer, so there we go. So just fill in the whole area. I'm going to put it over it all. Some people don't. Some people just put it in the lighter areas, but I like to make sure because it's a base layer. I'm just going to put it all over. Okay. And if you look, I keep twisting the pencil round, and that keeps it the point sharper. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure I get this section here right. So I've got a few bits coming off. And it goes right up under that beak there. And then looking at the feathers here, they come out sort of that way. They're a lot shorter here, the feathers. Okay. They sort of come round here. And they come back out here onto the, you can see how he's plumped his chest up, so you can see they sort of dip and come out there. So just nice shading motion and fill in this base layer. So all where you can see the red, the breast sort of red on the comes out that way. So this time we're moving it that way. It comes round there. Okay, up here. There we go. Like I say, a light touch. You don't want to be putting too much pressure on. And it comes down here, there. Okay. And then we've got some of it up here, which curves over the and up and over the top of the head, like that. Okay. We've already put in this hint of the yellow bit there around the eye, and then it comes back out here. Okay, so I'm just going to do another quick layer, light layer over the top of there, just to fill in a little bit more of the tooth of the paper. Not too much, really light, so I'm just glazing it really. Just back over where I've just been, just so I know I've got plenty of coverage. Okay, so there you can see we have got a light layer. You can see any gaps, just try and fill them in. Just not pressure wise, just glazing the colour over. Okay. I'm going to go over with the Luminance brown ochre. This one's the brown ochre 50%. So where I'm going to do this is by squinting at the photograph, I can see roughly where the shadows are going to be. So this time I'm actually doing it very light strokes, but I am doing it in the direction of the feathers, and I am my pencil's touching the paper and coming off, and keep going in one direction. Don't go backwards and forwards. Just go off in one direction. But try and if you squint at the photograph, you'll see where the darker shadows in this robin redbreast are, and here they're here, but the feathers are a lot shorter. So again, I'm still using a light touch. I'm just mapping in all of these where all the shadows are going to go. Now, they do actually come up here as well. And then from here, they're in here, get quite a lot of shadow area here, and then it comes out and it sort of comes around to the end of the shadows here. So under here we come out comes out to sort of a V shape there, and then it comes back in. That's it there, and then it just comes out a little bit on this side here as well, underneath the beak. And just in that area there. Okay. Comes up a little bit there. We've got a little bit of the shadow under here, so the shaping, plus it's changing direction and sweeping up that way a little bit. That's where the breast is turning. We've got a little bit of a darker shadow here. And then as we come down, we've got some little bits. You don't have to put them all in, but if you look, some of the pencil marks will give you hints as to where they'll go. And then down here, we will have quite a bit of shadow at the bottom of the red breast here. So I'm putting them, the lines of the feathers are a little bit closer together, but I'm going to put them so that we can see where they are. So that bit goes up a bit there, and then it comes back down this way here. Okay, so I'll be putting a lot more darker shadows in here soon. Let's come down here just a little bit more. Got the odd bit of shadow up here. And then we've also got a little bit on these edges here. Now coming up here to the top of the beak, where the shadows are going to be is, we've got another bit of a shadow, very small, coming out here. It's very dark up here. And we've got some shadow coming in that way from the top of the head, which is going behind the beak. Here is going to be really dark, but I'm just going to put this in just so I know where it's going to be. And then here is where we get these little dark bits, which are the circles around the eye. Okay, and then we also get some shading on the end of the feathers here as well. And then we've got the lines that come around here. Okay, so I've mapped in, so I've got the base layer down, which was the luminance 10%, and then we've gone on to the luminance brown ochre 50%, and we've put some darker tones in. So we've got a rough idea where the lightest tones and the darkest tones are, and then now we're going to put some mid-tones in, and then we're going to build this up. So we've got the base layers down, that's the main bit. So what I'm going to do before I do that, I'm just actually going to use my white luminance, and I'm just going to shade over very carefully, glaze over, blend it. So it's very light pressure. When you blend in, some people are under the misconception that it needs to be harder pressure, but it doesn't. Just do some, it's the same pressure, light, and just go over the area again, and that will help to just smooth off and blend those two colours that we've got on at the moment. Okay. So nice and light, following the direction of the feathers. Okay. And that's just blended them together a bit more so they'll be a bit smoother, and it's filled a little bit more of the tooth in without destroying it. So the next colour I'm going to use is, I'm going to use this, I'm not going to put a lot of this on, but I've got the light yellow ochre from the Polychromos range, and in the lighter areas, I'm just going to put a nice little bit of this in. Again, lightly and following the direction of the feathers. It comes down there. Okay. And then we have another little bit which is coming from this side. And these are sort of, these feathers go that way. Okay, so you've got little clumps. If you look carefully, very tiny clumps, and then it comes out and it comes into this area slightly. Okay. Around here and into that. So it's a bit more of a yellowy tone, but we're going to put another colour on it as well, just to, because it's not actually yellow, it's a more of an orangey colour. But if we, there, and then up at the top here as well. So some of this comes round. A little bit of yellow there showing. It comes round to the top of the head, and then we've got a little bit under here. We've put most of the yellow that we need there initially when we were doing the eye. Okay, and then coming down here, so off here we've got some of this lighter yellow. So this yellow that we're putting on isn't going to be, it's going to have some other colours on it, but it's going to be where the lighter areas are. So once again, if we need to, with the slice tool, we can pull some of this colour back. Now, in between some of these darker shadowed areas, we do have a little bit of light as well. So I'm putting some little bits down. I'm just squinting at the photograph. If you squint, you will see roughly where these lighter colours are, the darker colours. Okay, so they'll come up there a little bit. And then up here, but they're a bit smaller. And the direction is they're curving, so they're not straight. They, if you look, they do curve slightly. There we go. So we've got some of the yellows in there. So what we're doing, and if we are actually building up the colours by just adding so many colours in this red breast that you've just got to sort of look, the midtones are quite a few colours in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift that right to the darker shadow. So I'm going to use the Indian red. I don't think, I might need a bit of the Caput Mortem just for around this section here around the eye. But from what I can see, it may be a bit under here as well. But I just want to try first with this Indian red. So I'm going to put this darkest shadow here, which is just underneath this beak. Okay, and it sort of comes out here. These are very short feathers, so I'm now trying to, so I'm just looking at that shape. Okay, so that's the darkest part of it, and then the rest of it sort of comes out here, across here, and then release the pressure slightly, and it comes to about there. Okay. And then we've got this darker shadow up here at the top. That. And turning the pencil all the time just to keep the sharpness there. Got a little bit of the dark, the shadow area coming down here at the top. Around here, forming several little rings around the eye. And then we've got this one that comes up here. It's quite prominent. Okay. And then that comes down. So this is the bottom of these feathers just here under the eye. Okay. I'm going to release the pressure a little bit here as it comes down. It's not quite as dark here, but we'll be darkening this up anyway. And this section here is quite dark. Okay. If you look at this bit, it does slightly turn from that direction. That. So it's darker up at the top. And then it gets a bit lighter as it comes down here. Okay. And then again, it gets a little bit darker here. This is where the feathers, the top of the head feathers then actually go into the chest. So if you look, I am putting the pencil down and then just pulling it off, and I'm keeping it in one direction. Okay, very light pressure. You don't want too much pigment on at the minute. And then just release the pressure as it gets a bit lighter around here. Okay. Pull that bit down there. And then I'm also pushing a few up that way as well. Okay, so that's that section. So moving down a bit, we've got a bit of some feathers here with a shadow underneath. So put that bit of dark in there. And then again here at this end, we've got a few. So this is the part where you can just go around your red breast. Don't forget this is going into the whiter area. And then just put in as much detail as you want to put in. So at the minute I'm putting in the darker colours. So I'm looking everywhere where I can see them. Look, the main thing you've got to look for is the size of the feathers, the shape in which you're putting the feathers. So if it's a shadowed area, just keep your eye out because some of them are triangular and some of them aren't. Okay. Okay. Okay, so can you see how we're building these feathers up? We'll just keep doing that with all the different colours and go back and then revisit them. So what I'm going to do now, just for now, I'm just now going to put on the white luminance again and blend, because we've got the darkest and the lightest base layers as such down. I'm just going to now do a nice, just to smooth these out a little bit, well, blend them. So again, light pressure, but just blending softly, so it doesn't take away the feather line as such, but it does soften it. And because feathers are soft looking, they're not, you don't have defined lines, very definite line. So this will help to soften those lines around the eyes and on all of the feathers on the red breast. Okay. There we go. That's it. Now we do have a bit of an orange in there, so I'm actually going to pick up an orange colour. I think the brown ochre might be a bit too brown. Let's look at an orange. Hmm. Right, so I've just now got the this is the cadmium orange. It's the Polychromos one. So I'm just going to give it a bit of a sharpen, make sure we've got some nice sharp points. Okay. And I'm going to actually start using the pencil on its side, because I want these to look more natural and a little bit more. So if you look at these are the feathers that are coming down. So again, I'm only doing a light touch. And then we've got some coming down this way. They're in little tufts. Mm. And then coming back up here to the top, I've got some orange in there. Again, I'm using the sort of side of the pencil really, but going in the direction in which the feathers are going. And if this turns out to be a little bit too bright, we can always tone it down with the brown ochre. So coming around the eye now, down this side. Okay, and then I'm going over the dark as well. We put down because we are going to be darkening that, but also all these colours need to blend in nicely. Okay. And coming in here again into this darker area, but going over it. Okay. And then we've got this here that's quite orange. So what I'm deciding, I'm just going to go over gently because I'm not putting a lot of pressure on. I'm putting this orange more or less everywhere, very light layer. And then obviously the darker colours we can build up over the top, and then some of this yellow, yellowy orange will show through. Okay. Yeah, so you can actually see where the red breast is going to be going. We've got a little bit of tuft of a feather coming out there. And then in here we've got some little tufts that are coming out into the other feathers, the darker feathers. Okay, there we go. So it doesn't look too even a shape. You've got these feathers blending in eventually all over. Okay. So with Caput Mortem, I'm actually gonna, these are really, really dark shadows. Got a little bit of a shadow tuft up there. And we've got a bit of dark shadow coming up from the beak there. Got a slight bit mixing in there at the top. and then under here is where it really, this is where it's really dark. It almost blends in totally with the beak. Oh, I may put a little bit of sepia on there as well. And it just comes down here slightly. Okay, and then I'm just going to release the pressure and put a few more of these shadow bits here. Now I've got the point and I'm going in the direction. Some I'm shoving up and some I'm pulling down. And that's because this is where the light and the dark feathers sort of meet. So we want it to look more natural and a little bit more, you know, as though these feathers are on top of these. And then release the pressure here because it's not that dark. It's got a bit of a darker area here. It's just the bottom of the feathers. That's it. So we're just going to concentrate on this top of the head bit now. So this has got bits of light and mid-tones and dark tones in it. It's got shadows in it, but they're very, very short feathers. So these are going to be all mixed up, and then it comes into this darker area. So you got to blend, make sure that blends nicely. There. Okay. Right. So now I'm going to be looking at the brown ochre, the polychromos. Make it a bit sharper. Okay. And now I'm going to start at the top. So where I can see sort of mid-tones. So if you look, this is not an orange, not a bright orange, but it's a browny orange. It's a nice colour. It's a colour I use quite a lot actually. And again, just these are very short feathers, so just put your pencil on, lift it off, and going in the direction so it curves around the top of the head. Keep turning the pencil so that you've got okay. A little bit of light, a bit showing through. So if you want it all to look really that colour, you put more strokes and closer together. But when you want to show that there's a bit of light in there as well, you do just space them out, the feather strokes out a little bit more. Now around here, they are quite, put them really close together. Okay. And then down here, we've got these little tufty bits of the feathers. Come down, yep. I've got some on this side here as well, in this little white bit here. And then they'll start to come down together. Go in between these darker bits. So now I am sort of, I'm not going over everything, I'm just going over where I see this sort of lighter colour. So all up here on this edge is quite it's a lot more, it sits in the light a lot more just here. And don't forget we've got a few little bits of feathers coming out of there. That, okay. So what I'm aiming at, if you look, is I'm working in this sort of area here first. Make sure we get this built up, and then the rest of it is just going to be the same sort of working format. So if you look, some of these feathers do go in. So like there, the curl and the odd one curls upwards a bit. So do that, and it makes it look a little bit more natural rather than it doesn't look like a line of straight lines, basically. It does start to look as though you've got a bit of life in there. Okay, so that bit comes down and it sort of curves that way a little bit. And then I'm releasing the pressure in this area a bit because it is a lot lighter in that area. Okay, so you can see it's starting to build up there now to what it is down there. You're getting a lot more, starting to get depth there more than you are there. But that's the secret of pencil. You've got to have patience and you've just got to build these layers up one by one. I'm going to actually as well use a little bit of the, where's the dark sepia? Come along, where are you? Dark sepia. So like underneath here, very light touch, coming down here. It's more of a grey tone in the shadow, so I'm actually just going to put a little bit of the dark sepia in here. I'm going to put the top there. And then in the section that comes down here. A little bit there. And then also we've got a few little bits. You make this start to look a little bit darker by adding just some nice little, not too many, because we'll be adding more later. This just helps to pull that shadow out a little bit more. The way it looks a little bit more grey than red, just add some of this dark sepia. So we've got a little bit up here that could be a little bit more. Go. So these little circles. And while we're here, in the ring of the eye, that little ring that we put round, there is some little marks. Now, what I'm going to use for that is, they're not quite, you don't want them too dark, so I don't want to go and spoil it by putting the, I'm going to use the raw umber, the Polychromos raw umber. Okay, so it's a lighter colour, but just slightly darker so we can see. And what I'm going to do is, if you look around the ring of the bird, it has these little tufts like that that are coming out. So I'm just going to put those in where we can see. And then also we've got a bit of a shadow there on that eye. So I'm using the raw umber because it's not too, it's not like putting black or dark in there. It's going to show the difference, okay? And then we've got some more of those lines on this side of that ring around the eye. So you can just see, then they sort of disappear around here. Okay. And I'm going to put a little bit of the dark sepia just there. I mean, when we go over this again with the red, the Indian red, it'll just make it look like a grey red, which is what we're looking for. And then these are the bits of the bottom of the feathers that are coming down here. Very small strokes there. Okay, and then put a few more in here. So I'm now going to go back. But actually now, so let's have a look at terracotta. Not quite sharp enough. I was working on a bigger picture, would be fine, but okay. Nice sharp point. So this again is another mid-tone. And if you look carefully, I mean, we are working on a small piece here and a small area. But if you can see, especially this part of it, you've got small feathers, but you can actually do little, they're like little tufts. So if you look, I'm sort of blocking little bits of colour in. And then I'll get them to blend so that they don't look so liney, but it'll soften them, but you'll still see them. So they will look like soft tufts of feather. Okay. Some here. Coming out into this lighter area. Okay. Back into this dark here. There's that orange area that's coming down there. Okay. Bit of an orange area there. Don't forget that is the lightest area, so I do want to keep that quite light. So we will be building the darker tones up much more. Here we go. Using light pressure, we're not going in too heavy. And we're creating the different tones and values by just using different colors as well. And you can see it's now starting to pull together. So I'm now looking at going to go over with I've got a light red here. So I don't want a lot of this because I don't want it to look too red. So just using light pressure and just putting it in the brightest spots. So it's going over other colours. So it's not going to come out too bright. But again, light pressure because I don't want it to overshadow the more orangey tones that we can see. I think there's a bit of red in this. So we can put it where this darkest area is going to be, where the top of the head feathers are laying over the chest feathers, so they're looking a bit more. Well, we'll be using a slice, but we need to have enough layers of pencil on to be able to do that. May have a little bit more red just there. That's it. And the red coming down here. Yeah. Okay. So get the cream a little bit. Not quite a creamy. This is a lot lighter area here, so I want to make sure we do keep that. And that bit there, and then there's a little bit just there as well. Okay. Just glazing this creamy colour out, this ivory, So it's polychromos ivy. I'm just glazing it over just to keep the lighter areas light. Right, so I'm going to give it another blend. So another light layer of the white. So every time we put the white on, just put it on nice and light. It softens the lines, so you can still see them and you can still see that they're determined as feathers, but they're not as, they're softer, they're meant to look softer. Okay, but and it's also helping to fill some of that, to spread the pigment into some of the tooths of the paper. Okay, but you don't want to you really do want to make sure you're doing it fairly light. Okay, so I'm going to go back in now with the Indian red. Back to these darker shadows. Picking the other one in the opposite direction, but making sure in general it's curving that way around the head. Okay. And then the come around here, I'm just going to pull the pressure up a little bit. Okay, just put little bits in here because there's not a lot of the dark red there. There's a couple of strands in there. Not as much pressure. You can see there's not as much pressure on that side, but there is more here. Top of the head again. Okay. This is slightly softer over. We use the same colour, but it's slightly softer over there. So now I'm going to go back to the terracotta. I'm actually going to pull some of the terracotta out at the bottom of this as well, where the darker layers are there. And following the feathers and pulling it down. As you can see, I'm going over the dark red as well. Trying to leave some of this area very light. Yeah. Now then, just back with the Caput Mountain. Not in every, I'm not putting it on every feather, but just some of these feathers. And to keep a close eye on, I'm not following the actual feather design closely, but you know, I am quite, these feathers down here are slightly longer on the side of the head. Okay. Oops, I've got off a bit hard with that one there, so let me just. Okay. And back with the terracotta and just pull some of that down. Okay. I'm just going to give it, I'm just going to use the side of the pencil and I'm just going to give it a very light glaze of the orange. And I mean very light, you'll hardly see the colour on the paper, but it's there. And then another light glaze with the raw umber from the Polychromos range. I'm holding the pencil really far back and just literally glazing over some of this feather area. Okay, and then I'm going to use the white to blend again. So again, light touch, but direction, get the direction right. And you can see when you put the white on, it does lighten the colour. So this lighter area, by blending it and keep putting a layer on it, we're keeping it light, but we're also keeping it smooth. You know, it's looking nice and fluffy and smooth. And it's blending the colours nicely. Okay. There we go. Right then, so I'm coming up now to doing about, well, I'm going to put another layer of colour on as such, and then we're going to use the slice just on this top area, and then we can finish off this area doing exactly the same technique, same style. So I'm going to use the burnt, no, oh, this is the burnt ochre from the Polychromos. This is like a mid-tone, so I'm going to pull this down over the darker shadowed area as it's coming in down into these proper breast feathers. Okay. Same up here. We need some out of those shadow areas there. Okay. Then I'm going to get the Indian red again. Okay. Um, and now I'm just going to put on the dark sepia. I'm just going to put a little bit more dark sepia on. The edge of some of these feathers. And the bottom of some of these tufts of feathers just so that you can see. It fetches the lighter bits on the top out. Um, I'm gonna just glaze just in that lighter area. Just want it to pop a little bit more. I'm just gonna glaze just there at the bottom there. This is the light chrome yellow. And actually I'm just gonna put a little bit of it here as well. And just where I can see what it does, we've got the colours down. I haven't just gone in with this because we've got the other colours down, and I'm just like glazing this on top. What it does, it just brightens that little bit of an area up. So these two areas here that are coming out, and then just round here are looking a little bit brighter. So I'm just glazing it over everywhere, especially where I can see the lighter areas, and you can see how it's sort of fetching it out. Okay. So let's now have a look with the slides. So I'm just going to look, I'm using the slicer. I usually hold it so it looks like it's upside down. And just gently, I just want to take a bit of, I'm going to show some of these really light feathers. By pulling some of the colour out. Can you see just here? So I'm not going in heavy. I'm only going in with very light strokes. But by doing that, I can make a few more like definitions of these, especially these little tufty ones just here. Pushing it into the darker areas. May have to just touch that with a bit more dark. This is where the feathers get a little bit longer. Curl them. And then we've also got these feathers here. These ones look like the sap on top. I'm also going to pull out because we've got this white, sort of a light very light area just there. And then just pull up some of these lighter. So if you just gently go through with your slice, and I mean gently, then you will. The bit away. Right. So from what I can see, this just needs to be darkened up a little bit more. Probably a little bit more work on there. So I'm going to go in with the Caput Mortem. And just put in the tufts of the feathers. There we go. No, it doesn't want to be, you don't want to go in with something that's way too dark. But with these other colours on there, you just need a light touch. And then also we've got, so I'm going to use the terracotta just to put in a few more orangey tufts just here. Right. The same up here. And then also I want to use, so we've got these little rings around here. And right at the bottom of that ring, we've got a little bit of a around there. And this bit, in fact, I'm going to do that with this bit. So with the terracotta. And then just glaze terracotta there. Okay. There's the burnt ochre. Yeah, the burnt ochre. The glaze of the burnt ochre. That's like a mid-tone. Okay. Then I'm just going to use the slice a bit more and just fill in, just take out. Keep wiping your blade because you do get pencil um, pencil sticking to it as well. And there, and a little light coming out there. Right. can always come back and do more to this once we've got some more of it in. Okay, but the rest of the breast we just do with the same format. Okay, but while we're here, we're just going to finish this top piece off here. So we're going to put some base layers in just so we know what colours we're doing. So we've got a grey there, but it's a sort of warm grey. So what I'm going to use, I'm not going to use the lightest one. I'm going to use this light fast grey, I think, for the initial. Or shall I use the? No, I use the raw umber. I use the raw umber 10% from Luminance. Okay, so for the top of the head. Okay, so I'm going to go. This is where the more grey pieces are. Okay, so I've got this grey band that comes out of this red. That. Okay, and then it comes around the eye here, there. Doesn't sound right, does it, when you say eye here? Around the eye. It comes down here. So again, I keep following the direction. That's the most important thing. And because these are small feathers, I'm just doing it. There we go. And then it just comes down. Then that goes into more of a browny colour there. Okay. And then I'm going to use I'm actually going to use where's the nugget gone? Nougat. Where's the nougat gone? Where's the nougat gone? What's my nugget? Where's the nugget gone? Nugget. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Got my nugget. I'm going to use my nugget just for the initial brown. So I'm using very light pressure again. Looking at the shape and the way the feathers are going down the back of the head. There's a little bit of it there. Okay. It comes down there. Colouring the form of the feathers. So we've got the base layers in on the top of the head as well. Okay. I'm just going to drop in a little bit of the nugget here as well, because this is where the wings start. Okay, again, direction. I'm using the side of the pencil though now, because I only want, I'm holding it quite far back. I just want a nice, so I'm not going to do the whole feather just yet. I just want to get that section in there. Okay, and then we've got here, which is a lighter brown as such. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put in, what we've got here. This is the brown ochre. I'm actually just going to put some brown ochre in here because it's a little bit of a different brown. Okay, so I'm just using it again, the side of the pencil. Like that. Okay, so we've got these, so all these connecting areas now have sorted. So I'm just going to continue now with this bit, and then, so I'm not going to be doing a lot of talking because obviously it's the same process as there. It's just making sure you're looking at your reference photograph all the time. Okay, so I'm just going to put in, have a look here. we have got, let me straighten that up. We have got a lighter colour there, and I think actually it's got a bit of, it's got a slight pinky tone to it. So I'm just going to get the beige red. Just put that on there a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to start with the burnt ochre. That coming down, just always checking the direction of the feathers and the length. You may get a little bit of cross hatching when you're doing this. That helps sometimes as well. Because when you look at birds' feathers, they do look like they've been cross hatched. Okay, so that's the burnt ochre. So I'm actually going to put some terracotta and some orange. I'm just going to glaze a little bit of the orange here, where the brighter areas are. They go in that way. Quite a bit of orangey tone going on here. Okay. So now, let's see, it looks like a bit of looks like a touch of green here. So I'm going to use the olive green yellowish very lightly, and I'm just actually going to put it where over some of these darker areas here, very lightly. So you'll hardly see the colour going down, but there is a hint of this colour in certain areas. So I'm just looking carefully where I can see it and just placing it there. There's not many areas, just a few. Just there. Okay. Um, now, where's the Indian red? Is the use some of the Indian red? These darker areas. Give it a couple of feathers going the opposite way there. Mhm. Um, I'm going to use the mid-tones. So we've got terracotta and the burnt ochre. That was terracotta. Now down this side, this is where it's mostly in the shadow, so there's not that many light areas here. So for the mid-tone, I'm just using this terracotta. Come up here and it gets a bit brighter. In that one, and that one. Mhm. Mhm. Some feathers going that way, and some more going that way. Okay. See it building up nicely. Let's have a look. Let's put a little bit of the light cadmium red. Now this is just a glaze. This is over the darker, where I can see some of the darker areas. Yeah. And then I'm just going to actually use, if I look at this, it's a bit more, I'm just going to put a bit of nugget down here as well. Over some of these darker areas. It does sort of give it that look that I'm looking for, the darker tones. Mhm. Okay. Brown ochre now. Mhm. 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 Sepia. I'm just going to glaze a little bit more orange over this side. And over this section just here. Okay. Now then, I'm just going to blend it first. A light glaze of white just to blend. So it softens it all in. Okay. Muntum. So very light touch. So less pressure than what I was using on that section, and just fetch some of that in. Because obviously, and it does turn, so that's where it's going on to its breast. So again, following the form, putting some of the darker areas. Release the pressure where it's not quite as dark, but it's there. Let me darken up some of these. So where I'm not bits darker. It comes up here a bit lighter. A bit darker down here. And then we've got the more orangey, so I've gone now for the terracotta again. Right. And then the brown oak, the burnt ochre, sorry, oops. Just on this edge. So on the edges here, just putting the tufts of where the feathers end. And some of them will go into this whiter area because they're feathery on the edge. Okay. Okay. So now I'm just going to use the slice again and just see if we can get a bit more of this. Whoops, let me clean the blade, sorry. Right, so there needs to be a little bit more like a bit paler. So what I'm going to do is I'm using my battery eraser. To pull that little bit of light out of there. Just do it bit by bit, gently. Don't have to. Some of these feathers have got some very bright highlights, so I'll try with this eraser first. Especially on these very edge ones, because I just want those sort of disappearing into this. So I've taken some of the whiter areas out, and then I'm going to use try and use this slice just to put a little bit more texture into these feathers. There you go. And that's that. So once you're happy with that, that's the red breast. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.